he stated that this, and I'm happy he did, because Ryan Pace was trying to use making the playoffs low key as a success because he kept bringing it up. All right, we made it to the playoffs, but George McCaskey made a point to say they just added the 7th seed, so this season really is a failure, basically. My question would have been, so basically you're saying they had the same failure that they had last year. So should they be brought back this season if they had the exact same failure as last year? Because the playoffs doesn't count since they just added the 7th seed.
Well, they lost 6 games in a row and came out of it.
Yeah.
I heard that way too much. I mean,
right.
it got to a point where it felt like McCaskey and Phillips were treating the 6-game losing streak like a good thing. Like a reason that it showed the tremendous leadership of their coach and GM. Maybe don't lose 6 games in a row in the first place. Like that, it took far too long for that to be acknowledged. That was yet another bad moment for the Chicago Bears. Was fans hearing, we all heard it, that we lost 6 games in a row and we were only the 3rd team in NFL history to make the playoffs after that. And look at how our culture stayed together. The building stayed intact. We didn't break. We didn't splinter. We were able to win some games against some really bad teams, and then make the playoffs. I mean, that was you should never reward losing, no matter that. There's no but. Like it's like being like, oh, I'm not sexist, but I have a wife. Like we lost 6 games, but. And it's just like, or I'm not racist, but I have a black friend. Well, like, there's no but.
Right.
There's no but. There's literally no but.
That David show here with JJ Stankevitz. JJ, let me ask you this: why did Chuck Pagano step away? Well, I know they made it seem like he wants to go be with his family. Is it because that's the initial reason, or did he see the writing on the wall that they weren't going anywhere, and why should he expend any more of his energy and just ride off into the sunset? Or were there views of maybe bringing somebody in for that position?
I think change had to happen on the defense. This maybe was a natural move. I'm glad the Bears, by the way, gave Chuck the opportunity to retire, if that's how this went down, because Chuck does not deserve to be fired. Look, the Bears defense needed change, right? But Chuck Pagano, as just a football person in general, he deserved to go out on his own terms.
Okay.
Even if it maybe was like a nudge, still to be able to say I retired. Chuck earned that over the course of his football life. Maybe he'll be back. I don't know. But he earned that ability to do that. But I think the Bears need to bring someone else in, a different voice, because what the Bears defense is making too much money. The players are making too much money to not have sacks and turnovers. Like the two things that the Bears had in 2018, certainly just a magical year. You're never going to replicate that. You can't try to replicate that. But you also can't slide into the bottom half of the league or near the bottom half of the league in those categories when you're paying Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn and Eddie Jackson and Kyle Fuller and Akiem Hicks and Danny Trevathan. You can't do that. You have to maintain some level of, I guess, like splash plays would be the best word for it. And the Bears defense was very sound in a lot of things that they did this year. They were well coached for what they were doing, but they weren't well coached for what they really needed to do. And I think that's why a change was made.
Now, on the defensive side, with as much money as on there, can you see them making any moves and freeing up some cash by moving 1 or 2 players from the defensive side, and particularly someone like Eddie Jackson? And I wouldn't be mad. Go ahead.
No chance on Eddie Jackson. Okay. His contract, the contract he signed last year, that is not movable. If you were to restructure that and kick more money down the road, I don't think you do that after Eddie Jackson had 0 interceptions in the season. The easy cut here is Buster Skrine. He was probably going down that road. His contract was always designed really as a 2-year contract, even though it was a 3-year contract. You can save a little bit of cap space there, but the 2 guys I'm keeping my eye on, Ken, are Akiem Hicks and Kyle Fuller, because the Bears have decisions they can make on both of those guys, whether it's extending them or trading them, because trading them will free up a lot of cap space. And if Ryan Pace is going to have a bold offseason, that shows he is changing as a general manager. Trading away 2 high-paid, very good defensive players to go address your offense would be a way that he can do that. And I know it will make your team worse by not having Kyle Fuller and especially Akiem Hicks, who's the heart and soul of that defense. That dude, I am so impressed by everything Akiem Hicks does. He plays like 85% of the snaps every single game. He is a motor that does not turn off. And it would be a body blow to the Bears defense to lose him. You also have one of the 5 worst offenses in the NFL, and you don't have a lot of money to fix it. And as we've seen, offense wins in the NFL, not necessarily defense. Unless the only way if your defense wins in the NFL, the only way you do is if you have the best defense in the NFL.
Right.
Which is how the Bears won in 2018. It's how the LA Rams are winning right now. And it's really hard to try to have the best defense in the NFL. You can plan all you want. Defense can be kind of random year to year. So I think if Ryan Pace really takes a swing at this thing, like really, really does, Akiem Hicks and Kyle Fuller might not be on this team next year.
Ooh.
I don't believe he's going to do that.
Okay.
Ultimately, because Pace, that does not track with how Ryan Pace has built rosters. But I think if a new GM walked into the building today, that would be something he would consider. And look, there would be some sticker shock for what they would get back for Akiem Hicks. We had Pro Football Focus's Brad Spielberger on the Under Center podcast that's coming out on Monday. And I asked him what would be the return for those guys. Just take a guess. Take a guess. I'm interested what your guess would be for Akiem Hicks and Kyle Fuller draft pick compensation.
I think Akiem Hicks would I would want them to get a second or third, but I think they would get a fourth because of his age. Mm-hmm. And with Kyle Fuller, I think Kyle Fuller, had the best defensive year of any player on that defensive side. You usually don't see guys his age try to separate the player from the ball in the fashion that he did. But I think he's kind of still looked at as a zone quarterback. And still that's a large contract and he's going to want equal money, if not more. So you may be able to get, depending on if the team is thirsty, maybe a third, but you may fall into another 4th pick. I don't think you can get a 2nd-round pick for either one of those guys, but Hicks' age is a huge issue. Also, his fit, depending on if you're running a regular 4-3, because you really want to use him as like a 5 technique, because he's crazy strong. It's bananas. If you pull him off of that defense, they're not stopping anything up front. That's the thing why it's just so crazy. But that's how I feel. What did he say?
This is why I like coming on with you, Ken, because you are incredibly smart. He said Akiem Hicks would get a 5th and Kyle Fuller would get a 3rd. And the comp for Akiem is Calais Campbell, who was traded to Baltimore from Jacksonville for a 5th-round pick.
That's a good one. He's not Calais Campbell. I love him, but he's not Calais Campbell. Heralded as Calais.
There were different things with Calais Campbell going on, or he wanted out of Jacksonville. Jacksonville was very clearly rebuilding. But that is a comp, and, teams around the league pay attention to that stuff.
Right. So listen, 2 more questions. I'm gonna let you get out of here. One question is personnel moves, and this involves who do you think will be the next DC? Will Matt Nagy take over play calling again, and Allen Robinson's future?
Next DC, I think Jay Rodgers. There's that report that came out Friday morning from Ian Rappaport that the Bears are considering him, but if they don't go that way, his contract expires. And he's going to get interest to be a DC somewhere else with a lot of these new head coaches. So if you want to keep Jay Rodgers in the building, I think you promote him to DC. I think that's the most likely path right now. You could look outside your organization, but you might have a hard time finding someone who wants to step into a place that has a lack of stability. For all the talent that is on that defense, if you're looking for your next Brandon Staley, I don't know if you're going to find that person willing to come to Chicago. So I'll say Jay Rodgers. If it's not him, I think someone like George Edwards, who former Vikings DC, a guy the Bears interviewed in 2018, maybe just to go around the Rooney Rule. The only black coach they interviewed, and it was him and Vic who were the defensive assistants. And let's be honest, if they were getting the defensive assistant, they were going to hire Vic. Anyways, but they still interviewed him, and that can provide some valuable insight. He's currently a senior analyst with the Dallas Cowboys. That could be an option. And then if you're looking for someone who's outside of the coaching ranks right now, James Betcher, who was the Cardinals and Giants DC for 5 years last decade. All right, so the second one, Matt Nagy. I think he takes it back next year. That's my gut. That he spends the whole offseason reworking his offense and he takes it back. And then Allen Robinson, they tag him and they trade him.
Wow.
I went real long on this on the A-Rob thing on NBCSportsChicago.com. Your viewers can look at it right now.